Looks like we're live. Sorry, a little bit going late. I've been looking at the weather. It's not looking real good here. Make sure I got everything set up properly. There's the notifications. So hope everybody's having a good weekend. We've been getting quite a bit of storms here, man. A little flooding everywhere, and so I'm having to kind of pay attention to the weather a little bit more than normal. Oh, Sheen was first. Yeah, old Clint's working, I guess, again tonight. Let me send him a link just in case. I go down because we have a pretty bad thunderstorm cell about to come through here in the next few minutes. So we're in the next half hour. So if the stream goes down, I will try to come back if I have power and internet. So we'll just have to play it by ear and see. Hopefully everything will be okay, but there's a pretty mean looking sail headed right my way. It's red on the radar. It got a big bow, so that's always a bad sign. So we'll just knock on wood and keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully everything will be all right. What's going on, Seashine? So for the next 30 minutes, maybe hit and miss a little bit here, but we'll try to get through it. But we do have a lot of flooding here as well, so trying to hopefully keep his basement dry, man. It's been dry. Well, when I first moved in here, I guess maybe a few years after I moved in, had the basement all set up, looking perfect, everything organized well, and it flooded. So we had to move everything up high, pile everything up on the stuff, and been here a long time since. Not really ever gotten back to where it was once before, but now it's maybe what was it? A couple months ago? How long ago was it the basement flooded, babe? She may be upstairs, but I guess a few months ago. Might have been a little longer than that. It flooded. The basement flooded. No, it's been more than that. But yeah, I've been concerned. Not a leaky basement, but when the ground gets saturated everywhere and has nowhere else to go, it's not watertight. So hopefully we'll stay dry. Made your first run of all grain corn, wheat, and barley. Smelled off, but was great. Was great after running it through the process. Awesome. Now 10.30 was the starting gravity. Not vomit. Strange smells are fairly typical. Generally a sign of yeast stress. So we got to figure out what it was maybe that stressed the yeast. And not all fermentations are going to smell great. My watermelon was too hot and it smelled off, and it was off. It was horrible. But I learned a lesson. When you do certain types of fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, you really need to be more conscious of the temperature. Watermelon does not do well at higher temperatures. Where other things you can kind of stress and get those heads up for a little extra flavor, but you don't want to do that with certain things. So 1030 was a starting gravity. So we might need to work on that process a little bit. We want to get that gravity up a little bit, and in the 4 5 O's, 6 O's would be good. Probably gelatinization of the corn might have been, getting not enough high temperature. It may have been something we talked about. It's hard for me to remember. I get 1,000 questions a week, all the time. So remind me, but it sounds like maybe the temperature wasn't high enough to get a full gelatinization. So we'll definitely have to work on that to get it up. But as long as it came out tasting good, probably a little bit lacking on volume because of the lower initial gravity and the lower gravity. But as long as it came out tasting good, that's the most important thing. So that's a success. Now let's work on getting higher production and even better. But that's awesome, man. I know my first ones weren't weren't that good. You know, they turned out horrible, scorched and horrible. But we were talking about that last night on the show. Most people won't drink scorched, but you know, it was my first run. I was proud. It was alcohol, and I choked that shit down, and so did my buddies, and we didn't really give a shit. But yeah, a lot of the organic acids don't have the best smells. Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll come your way because it is moving almost due east. So I do know that Tennessee's getting some. So hopefully y'all get some. Yeah, Tennessee's getting some of this too, and it's a big storm cell. So hopefully you'll get some over there. Is there an advantage for having a worm smaller diameter than your other pipes? Not really. A lot of people do because it's just expense. You know, it's it's not critical because it would depend on the size, right? If we're talking 3/8 or quarter inch, yeah, it's going to be an issue. But if it's like half inch and the rest is 3/4 or 5/8, it's not as critical. And a lot of people do that because it's just cheaper to buy the half-inch coil, you know. Um, but as long as it's adequate to cool it down and you know, get it condensed properly, it's generally not an issue as long as you don't get back pressure created from it. Yeah, man, I put out tomatoes. I guess it's been a few weeks ago, and I've not had to water them once. Well, I've watered them once, but it's rained almost the whole time, so I am worried about the basement. What's going on, Wayne? How's it going, brother? What's going on, JJ? Hey, Curtis, how's it going, brother? Got 3 quarts, 110 proof, final product, first jar, 600 dropped to 100. Yeah, 160 to 100. Yeah, that's fairly typical. So first jar probably had a lot of heads and fours, and then you know almost transitioned into medium, and then you know hearts in the medium mid range, and then probably started on some tails pretty early. It's but once you get your production up, you'll see a little bit more in the middle, right? You'll see 160, or you'll see 160 last longer before you do drop off. Yep. Did an all corn was my did a oh, was the same 1030. Didn't get it hot, but added 10 pounds of sugar, a little smell. Yeah, you need to get the temperature up, boys. Gotta gelatinize that corn. You gotta get the starches out of that corn before the yeast can use them. Otherwise, you're just going to end up making. And there's nothing wrong with sugar and cornmeal. You know, I've did that for years. It's called a thin mash, and that's one method of doing it. You know, it's definitely not the best method, but it is a method, and it's simple and it's easy and it's okay liquor. You know, it's not the best you're going to produce once you do get this conversion thing going and rely less on sugars. You know, you're going to see a more smooth, flavorful shine. But I mean, I did it this way. I can't knock it because I did it that way for decades, right? So until I got the internet and got exposed to, you know, other techniques and learning more about grain conversions and these things, you know, and um, I was clueless as well. I had no idea that there was another way of doing it. But there's nothing wrong with using sugars and grains. If you don't get the gravity up there, then by all means start adding a little bit of sugar so you can get at least some production. You know, you need to make your trouble worth the time, you know, and effort. But it's definitely going to be a little better once we get lined out the proper cooking, the times, and what your gelatinization looks like, and getting your enzymes. Well, never give up. I mean, it like exactly, like propane. If it doesn't work out, you don't get the conversion. I mean, you got two options. You can add sugar, or you can get this yellow label angel yeast, which some people say is great. Some people say maybe not the best flavor, but if you have a failed, gravity and you had failed conversion, you can use this yellow label angel yeast, which has some, I guess, the goji, fungus in it that helps break down the starches and ferment. So, that's another option, keeping that on hand in case that comes up. If you don't want to add the sugar, you can do, and that does take a lot longer. It's going to take considerably longer for it to happen. And it's hard to use a hydrometer because it's basically converting sugars and consuming them at the same time. So you're not going to see that starting high and fall. It's going to be pretty much things that happen at the same time. So it's going to consume the sugars as they are converted, but it does take time. I have not done it yet, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot. I'm very interested in seeing exactly, I'm going to try to get all the parameters exact, but, you know, just use the yellow label versus what I would normally do and see how it turns out. But yeah, I mean, if all else fails, it's just add some sugar or use that yellow label. But again, it's there's nothing wrong with having to add a little bit of sugar. I mean, especially for beginners, man. It's your first time, first few mashes, you can expect some speed bumps. It's inevitable. But we can make it better. We can get it better. Temps though, keeping those temps over 185 for 90 minutes is key. Using the high temp alpha amylase is almost, I mean, you just don't want to use the powder anymore. It's just too convenient to use the high temp alpha. So, getting that in there at 185 and holding it and letting it work, and then, adding your glucose at whatever the label calls for, should get you, pretty good. Now, what was your ratios, Greg? How much grain to water ratios did you have? Maybe a little less water, more grains could have helped. But we'll definitely figure out what the issue was. Yeah. Hey, Marsh, how are you? How are things in Beattyville? I was there not too long ago for the Moonshine Festival. I guess they called it a different festival this year, but had a great time there. Love Beattyville. Tried 20 pounds of corn. Should I do a small amount? I did the alpha and the glucose. Okay. Now, the alpha, was it the powdered alpha or the high temp liquid? Yeah, with 20 pounds of corn, you definitely, don't want it 10 gallons of water. 2 pounds per gallon is a good okay. 2 to 2 and a quarter. So you could do anywhere from 8 to 10 gallons and be fine with 20 pounds of corn. But make sure it's ground, and or cracked. Start at 1075. That's about 10%. Should get, oh yeah, that's good. 150 pound of corn. How much water did you have? About 60, 70 gallons. Corn syrup is fine. Dextrose works real well. A little more expensive. Generally retails about $2 a pound. Sugar, probably about $1 now. Beet sugar probably closer to 70 cents a pound, unless you're getting good deals on it. And I know Philbilly can get some good deals on dextrose, but the shipping, of course, kills you shipping 50 pounds bags. But yeah, I know what you meant. But yeah, it's corn syrup is fine. That's awesome. Yeah, he's not contacted. I did education last year, and he's not contacted me at all about educating. I'm wondering about old Dan. He's not said the first word to me, so I don't know. Maybe he'd rather somebody else do it. We'll see. But yeah, I look forward to that. Yeah, sugar tends to make it a little hot. It does. It gives a little bit of bite, but I mean, kind of be most people expect that when they drink moonshine. When you talk about somebody that doesn't understand distillation and talks about old moonshine, they're used to bite, and a lot of old moonshine was made with cornmeal and sugar. That was the old standard thin mash. A lot of people did thin mash. It's probably one of the most popular, easiest ways to do it, and because it was easy, and because people accepted a little bite with the shine. Some people like that bite. They expect it. They like that higher proof. It's manly or something. I don't know, but yeah, it was almost expected. But we know that there's better ways. And we can make it smoother and better. High temp, good deal. Yeah, just getting it up. And how many 20 pounds to 10 gallons? That's fine. Yeah, I got to worry about those cook times, and keeping that temperature up, not just starting it, but maintaining that 185 plus for the 90 minutes. I know a lot of people, started out at 200 or 90 or whatever, and then they can't maintain it. You got to keep that little bit of water, like yours, if you started with 10 gallons of water to 20 pounds of corn, maybe start with 7 gallons and keep 3 boiling. And every, 10, 15 minutes, just keep adding some of that water in there to maintain that hot temperature. Is a good way to, if you're going to steep. Yeah, in big coolers. Yeah, that's a big old barrel. Or you must have been using more than one barrel. But yeah, it's going to get warm enough this next week here. It's going to be in the 90s, so we won't have to worry about insulation much anymore. Yeah, getting it milled, it's got to be cracked properly. Getting like half corn kernels is not cutting it. You need to imagine a corn kernel at least chopped up to 8 pieces per kernel, 6 to 8 little chunks per kernel or smaller, and that'll get you a better conversion. It's easier for the starch to get broken out. 12 gallons mash, 9 pounds of, okay, 12 gallons. Now, did you tell me? Let's see, 12 gallons. Let's see, 9 pounds of corn, 3.4 pounds of wheat. So that's 12, 13, 14, about 15. Unmalted's fine. 15. Let me see. What did you say? And 6 gallons. Yeah, that's a fine ratio there. So that's a little over two and a quarter, right where that should have gotten you a better yield, Greg. We gotta definitely work on, maybe the alpha amylase, maybe it's not up to snuff. What kind was it? Where'd you get it? Sometimes if it sits on a shelf for a year or two, it starts to, get a little, less efficient. So sometimes, we have to use more. I know after mine sits in the fridge for a while, I have to start using more than what it calls for, and it's not going to affect your flavor. What's going on, Michael? Good to see you, brother. So yeah, we that's a good ratio though, and that's probably why you had good flavor too. You got a pretty good grain combination, good grain bill there. Drill wasn't that powerful. I got a pretty good one. It's a Harbor Freight one, but it's the half inch, and I got it for mixing mud. It's a pretty good one. It's half inch, got the little handle on the side, and it can. I got it for mixing drywall mud when I was working on and mixing tile. That's what I got it for, mixing tile grout and the shit, what's it called? I can't remember what they call that. The thin set stuff to set it down with. Thin set. But yeah, that's with 6 gallons. That was a good ratio. Wood fired's tough though. It's tough, Oshin, because it's hard to keep it even, right? You always having to rake coals in and put some out, and working constantly to maintain a temperature. Whereas on a PID or an SCR, especially not a PID, but an SCR, it's really easy to maintain a temperature. Or on a gas, if you got that, you can adjust that little gas, you know, and keep the flames exact. It's a lot better unless it's a windy day. Um, so it's tough. I started out doing fires, and it's tough, especially with a pressure cooker and sitting on rocks and building little fires underneath it. It was pretty tough, but it was fun. Yeah, it gets thick, man. It does, especially when you start getting 3 pounds per gallon over. It starts getting really really thick. But if I used to have to do that when I was using the powdered amylase, and I swore 3 pounds per gallon is what it took because I was using the powder and I just wasn't get good conversion with that powder. But now that I'm using the high temp alpha, man, it's I can do two and a quarter no problem and get that good gravity. Yeah, yeah, you just it does fall off quickly. If you have a cooler that works a lot, or if you can insulate the barrel, but keeping some of that water out separate and keeping it boiling and keep adding it and stirring it in, that helps a lot, and that's definitely what you got to do. And if the first time, doing seven, like if you're doing 10 gallons, pulling out seven and adding, the last three every 15 minutes, a little bit, couple half gallons at a time. If that doesn't work, then maybe next time, keep out four, or find something to insulate the barrels. Finding a big 55-gallon drum or something plastic, and then putting a smaller drum inside that and foaming. Getting some of the spray foam, or even plastic peanuts, anything you can get to kind of insulate a little bit. I know a lot of people will wrap blankets, anything you can do. I've even heard people using real insulation, but I don't know. I don't like that stuff. I hate it. Itching just thinking about it. But um, yeah, trying to keep it insulated. The big old cooler, big old fishing cooler works great. It'll hold those temps pretty well. But if you can, cut the top out of a barrel. And when I say the top out of it, don't cut below the rim, cut the top out, but maintain that rim a little bit around it, because that gives your barrel a little bit more rigidity. If you just cut the whole top off from the side, it wants to just open up on you and flatten out and doesn't work as well. Doing a 15-gallon steeping on Monday, 15 pounds of white winter wheat and 35 pounds. That's 50 and 15. You might want to add a little bit more water, Patty. You're going to have more than 3 pounds per gallon. So you want to get your grains, if you can, 2.5, somewhere in that range should work out well for you. So you can get a little bit more yield out of that. 15, let's see, 15 gallons. Let's see, that's, oh, wait a minute, wait. 15 and 35 is 35, 50, 15. Yeah, three is 45. So that's definitely going to be over 3 pounds a grain per gallon. I'd probably go, almost, you could go to 20 gallons and be 2.5 pounds of grain per gallon. I'd do the 20. Start with 15 boiling gallons, and I mean boiling hard, and then have 5 on the side boiling, and as you go, keep adding half gallon at a time every 15 minutes till till you get done with the 90 minutes to 2 hours, and you should gelatinize pretty well. Yeah, it's all learning curve, but keeping those temps up. I think that last time that's what it was. Your temps got low, and they will get low. It drops quick. So keeping that, extra water to the side boiling, and keep adding it, and keeping everything hot and up to temp is imperative. Yeah, yeah, it'll lose heat fast, man. They sure do. What's going on, Frank? Good to see you, brother. That's right. I love my Harbor Freight stuff. Now I do have some good Milwaukee stuff and other stuff, but when it comes to certain things, you know, it's kind of hard to beat. I got some nice tile saws from there. Work really well, inexpensive. I've got that drill. I had a Craftsman. I mean, I burnt that Craftsman up. It was a 3/8, and I'd had it, man, 25 years though. I'd used it a lot too. I used to do work in construction and stuff, and yeah, that drill seen its better days, man. I literally wore the plastic from just it going around out around it. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the concrete mixers, that they have that can handle the torque, those work quite well. And I've seen people mount them. I've talked about doing it at one point in time, and I just end up making a little, rigged up a little tie wraps and wood for my drill. With the handle, it makes it a little easier to strap down, and it works pretty good. Wayne's got a really nice setup. He's got not sure where he sourced his motor, but he's got it all set up where he just sets it right on top of the barrel, and he can just add his stuff in as it spins. And that's the way to do it. I've got mine, tie wrapped and strapped with the plastic straps and stuff, but out of Georgia, North Georgia, probably. Yeah, it's North Georgia. It should be fine then. If it's what I'm thinking, if it's North Georgia Steel Co., it's probably okay. There's the man. What's going on, brother? Yeah, get her done, son. Gotta get that work done. Good to see you though. It's 8:31. I guess we're out of the scare zone with the weather. Let me check my radar here. I mean, right before I went on, it was a big red bow coming right at us. So I may just now be hitting us. So. But yeah, it looks like it covers the whole state of Kentucky, man. We've been getting some flooding too, so I hope everybody is okay, and I hope y'all doing okay down there in Beattyville. I know Madison County's got some flooding, and Bullock County's got some flooding south of Louisville. They had a dam issue there too. Oh no, it's just now getting here. Yeah, let's see. Damn it, let me rewind this. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there's that red cell I was worried about. Oh yeah, it's past us, but now the rain's here. But yeah, southeastern Kentucky and northern Tennessee is getting hammered right now. Right about where Damon is. He said his chickens were going crazy down there. You better batten down the hatches, all I can say, because it's looking bad. But don't work too hard, buddy. Stay safe. It is, man. It's a fun hobby, but if it were easy, the easy part about it is once you get done, you're just waiting. There's a lot of time, a little bit of work, and a whole lot of waiting. Grain, a little less waiting, wines and brandies and stuff, a little bit more waiting, and you can put it off a little better. When it's under an airlock and it's a wine, you can put it off as long as the hell you want to. Really, it depends on the fruit. But when it's grain, you kind of gotta keep up with it. Unless you want it dry, you gotta stay on the ball and run it when you can. But yeah, it's a workout, especially if you're using a paddle like I used to do. Now it's all drill and mud mixing. I use a mud mixing kind of yeah, he made Bill. But it's kind of yeah, there's that squeaky chair. I did get one on Amazon Prime Day, so got me a nice cushy, big cushy chair coming. Got a little heat vibration in the back and everything. Should be nice. I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to getting this one. It's not just squeaky. This one kind of it's been worn out, man. This chair is probably about 15. I kept it much longer than I should have. Hell, the balls on the wheels are almost all of them are gone now. I think I have one left. Yeah, I get my use out of shit though, man. I'll use it till it literally falls apart, and I do the same with vehicles. Yeah, yeah, the high temp alpha is great. Yeah, if you ever use the just the grains or the powdered alpha, you would definitely be like, "Oh my, it's such a breath of fresh air. It's so much better." It really made things a lot easier because with the powdered, you had to stay between 150 and 155. It was really that tight. Go over denatured, go under is less effective, and it was really imperative to keep it at 155 if you wanted a good conversion and all this. But again, having that yellow label with the goji, it's good to maybe have that on hand in such a circumstance where you just don't get a good conversion and you don't want to throw the sugar in. Use that yellow label. Yeah, yeah, you'll definitely get the good corn oil, especially if you use like Buddy Butcher and some of those heavy, oily corns. They'll have big old round spots of oil out there. It's pretty cool. But if you don't want that, you can take a paper towel and just touch to those oil spots, and they'll suck them up. Or throw some paper towels on top of it, and it'll pick them up. Yeah, yeah. It's if you got a 10-gallon still and you got a 5/8 coming out of it, or 15, and you got 5/8 coming out of it going into a half-inch steel, half-inch worm, not going to be as critical. If you got a 30 or 40 going into a half-inch worm, you might want to go with something a little bigger. Yeah, yeah, you can get some more. If you have a couple of fermenters, you can definitely do more. Awesome, awesome. Yeah. Oh shit. I was going to talk to Phil last night about checking an SSR for me. I've got a big element, a 9,000 watt element, and I need a SSR that can handle it and good wiring diagram because I'm going to be in an area where I can use the 50 amps to it. So watermelon season. I tell you what, Alvin. Out of all the ones I've done, probably watermelon I like the least. But like I said earlier, I did do it at too high of a temperature. It was in the mid 80s, right? Which is probably not good for watermelon. It was a smelly mess. So if you can do it cooler, if you've got I'm fermenting, the fermentation. If you can, use maybe a wine where I've, used EC 1118, which is champagne yeast, which would prefer cooler temperatures. But yeah, it was in the 80 mid, maybe even upper 80s at time during midday, and it was too warm for it. I would recommend going at a little lower temperature. It turned out okay-ish. I think if I ran it a second time, it would have cleaned it up quite a bit. But not one of my better fermentations, not one of my better runs. It was pretty expensive. I paid retail for them. It'd been better if I got them for free. I will say the dark green round ones didn't do bad at all. They weren't half bad at all. But the variegated long seed, seeded, and then the round variegated seedless. I mean, like the two-tone green ones with the stripes, kind of camo looking. What I'm saying, variegated. Um, they didn't do well. But the dark green round ones, those did okay. So if you can get those, I'd recommend those over the others. But I think it would have definitely done a lot better had it been, in the 70s, mid to low 70s would have done better. I run corded, man, for that. That half-inch Harbor Freight drill, it's powered. I just unplug the grain mill and plug it right into that. And it's best just to get, we were talking about last night having on off switch for your grain mills. I've got, I use just a little, basically it's a surge protector for a computer, and it's got like a little strip, you can plug in 4 or 5 things and an on and off switch on it. And I just plug everything into that, and that works out pretty well. Yeah, I would never. Yeah, anything less than a half inch, I'd replace, even on a 5 or 10 gallon. I don't like that 3/8 inch or quarter inch. No, it's just too risky, too easily clogged up. Right? Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Puke over into it, get a few kernels. It's gonna be bad. Yeah, I agree. I always get the water boiling, and I mean rolling hot, boiling hot as it can get, and then I'll turn down the heat and stir. I've got the drill on the board and set it up so I can add as it's stirring, and I do that and try to, I don't cook it, but I have the heat going underneath it to help maintain it. So I do turn it down though, just to help maintain it and it way down so it's not going to scorch, but it helps me out, right? You're not cooking, but you're helping maintain. So it definitely helps. But yeah, I add the corn to the boiling water. I'd say it'd be fine either way, but when you add the water to the corn, a lot of times you get pockets of dry on the bottom, and you got to make sure you hit everything. If it's in a bucket or a barrel, probably not as bad, but like in the cooler, you got those corners where your mud mixer can't get in there real good. It might not be as good, but I get it boiling heavy, 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 and then dump it in the cooler and or you can just if you have a big enough pot, you can, pour your corn into the pot, get it going, cook, 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 then dump it in the cooler and then add more water to the pot and keep that boiling and add it to the cooler as you go. But if you got a big enough pot, you can maintain it in the pot. If you can maintain the temperature, you don't have to steep, but it does help prevent from scorching. West Virginia. Quick question: have you used Angel Yellow yet label yeast? I've not used it yet. Um, I've got a brick up there. I'm going to use it. I haven't done any grains yet this spring. I've been working. I've done some apple brandy, and now I'm doing some potatoes, and then that grain's going to be next as soon as I get these taters in. But I am going to try two. I'm going to try to do two identical grain bills, and I'm going to try a yellow label in one, and then the conversion method in the other, and just kind of judge the outcome and try to keep them exact. They're both going to be outside. I'm both going to try to keep them exact, except for one's going to get the conversion, and the other one's just going to be cold fermented. Just not even going to gelatinize, do nothing. They just say pour it all together, stir it up good, let it do its thing. So I'm going to put it to the test, and we'll see. But other people have done it and they've had good results. They've had some promising results. It's mixed though. It's mixed results. Some people say it works fine, but they didn't like the flavor. But they did get the conversion, they got the production, and they just weren't real sold on the flavor. Right? They didn't like the flavor. Other people said it worked and they had enjoyed it and liked the flavor. But I've not had anybody really say that it didn't work completely. Some people kind of mixed about, maybe how much they got, maybe not as much as they were expecting volume wise, but most everybody seemed fairly, kind of within the normal range of what they would get, but maybe a little on the lighter side for production for some. There may have been other circumstances that caused that amount of grain and water ratio, of course, would be one thing that would cause fluctuations like that. But Um, so far, the only negative things I've really heard about it is some people just didn't like the flavor. Yeah, we've got a lot of flooding up here, man. Quite a bit. It's like I said, I planted those tomatoes and peppers 3 weeks ago, and I've only had to water them once, so it's rained almost every day. I hope this basement doesn't flood again, Lord. I don't want to have to stay up and wet back for. Ann and I literally stayed up for like 30 some hours straight and wet backed water to keep it from building up in this basement. And I got one of my fermentation barrels and put up my sump pump in it, and I just kept going from the wet and dry back, dumping it in that barrel and pumping it up the steps and out, and did that for 30 some hours. Yeah, end up going and getting a second wet and dry back so we could keep up with it. But yeah, I was exhausted. My elbow hurt literally almost. It been a year. It was probably, when was it, Ann? She still ain't down here. She get her headphones on. She ain't down here. But maybe it was. Maybe it was last year. I guess it. Yeah, it's had been last year because that's when we bought. Yeah, we bought. Yeah, because I was going to write that off on my taxes in April. Or I did write it off. So yeah, that was last year. But man, my arm hurt for 6 months doing that sweeping action. Man, 30 some hours it got me. Wasn't used to that hard work like I used to do. What's going on, Hellbilly? Good to see you, brother. You got a little storms coming your way, looks like. What's going on, Margaret? The Muskosha River. Awesome, bro. Hope you're catching some fish. Can you use turbo yeast when fermenting fruit? You can, Alvin, but turbo yeast kind of has a bad name, and what it is about turbo yeast is it has a lot of nutrients in it, and some say too many nutrients. I think it's probably better for making fuel, but a lot of people use it and like it, so it's basically an opinion thing. But more people I've heard dislike it than like it. I've heard a few people say, well, it was just fine, and I haven't tried them all. So there probably are some out there that are okay. Um, but I would say, getting a different type more geared towards distilling and maybe some daty yeast or some EC1118, nice clean yeast that's kind of neutral and doesn't impart any flavors, good or bad or good. But turbo tends to have a little bit too much, from my understanding, nutrients in it. And anytime you get too much nutrients, is as bad as not enough, and sometimes even worse. And creating some off flavors, it's probably not the best, and it's not cheap. So I mean, there's probably cheaper yeasts that would be maybe as good or better. But then again, it does come down to flavor, and if you're happy with the flavor, then it's perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, any yeast, if you like the flavor, it's fine. But there are going to be definitely better yeast to use with fruit. I would look into some Red Star, Premier Rouge, Premier Blanc. I use the Premier Rouge for like red wines and red brandies, dark fruits, like dark grapes, prunes, things of that nature, plums, not prunes, plums, things of that nature. And then I use the Premier Blanc for like peaches and apple and things like that. But experimenting with different yeast, you'll get different flavors and different florals and different unique flavors out of it. And I would highly recommend experiment with different yeast. It does maybe cost a little bit more for the Red Star versus probably your Turbo 8 or something like that. But in the long run, it's going to be good. And once you use these yeast, you can keep them alive. You can take that yeast bed from the bottom, keep rinsing it with some, good clean water and rinse all the alcohol out and kind of sift through and get all your organic matter out by running it through a sieve and put it in the refrigerator in a jar with some holes in it so it don't blow the lid off. And every once in a while feeding it a little bit of sugar, but keeping it. And, you can maintain some yeast that way. And so it really, shouldn't be a major expense. You can keep reusing it, and just always pull a little bit out of that yeast bed and use it for the next one, and that works pretty well too. So you can use a little bit more expensive yeast and still have it. And there's nutrients in there. So there's some dead yeast in there now. So, you're going to have a good, clean nutrient that really, dead yeast, yeast holes, Fermo is something you really can't use too much of. Whereas like a DAP with urea and some of the other definitely can be overdone. And I think that's probably what most turbo has in it. And it can definitely be overdone. So, but I mean, if you've used it before and you like the flavor, I would say yes, it can. But maybe should you? That just comes to flavor. And I would definitely try some Red Star, Premier Rouge, Premier Blanc, some Lalvin, D47, EC1118. Try different yeast for different flavor profiles, and keep them alive. Keep your jar labeled EC1118, and keep you a big half-gallon or quart jar. With that yeast and water, and every once in a while pull it out and feed it a little bit of sugar, keep it alive, shake it up, and keep them dormant in the fridge, and you'll be able to, anytime you want to use them, you can take that jar out, shake it up real good, pour some into a little pint jar or something like that, and I'm not depending on the size of your fermentation, and just reuse that, right? And when you get done with it, you can put some back into that half-gallon jar or whatever, a quart jar, and keep it going. Yeah, man. I spent a lot of time on the big Sandy River fishing and smoking. We always had a smoking. That's how I got started smoking as a kid. We'd sit down there and fish for, whatever we could catch, mostly catfish. But somebody told us, you build a little fire or have some smoke, and it'll keep the mosquitoes and all the gnats and stuff away. So we decided building a fire is too much time, trouble, and effort, and I didn't want to start a fire. So we started smoking cigars and Swisher Sweets, and we wouldn't inhale them. We just puff them and keep them going and keep the smoke cloud around, and it did work. But as time passed, we started inhaling a little bit and getting dizzy and laughing, thought it was funny, cool. Next thing you know, he's buying packs of cigarettes and smoking and fishing. Yeah. I hope you catch a bunch, brother. But I must have missed something here. Oh, we talking about butter here. Oh, you talking about the oils? Okay. Yeah, I know. Some people just don't like the flavor of it. I'm talking about at the end. Yeah, usually there's a cap there, so you don't see the oil spots until the cap drops, and then you start seeing those, and then it's time to run. So some people don't like that when they run it. They don't want it to be oily. They don't like that oily, earthy, So sometimes people will take it out. It doesn't bother me. Yeah, those I don't know what they call the green ones. They were seedless green, the same size as that other seedless, variegated one, but they were definitely better. They definitely were better. What's going on, Dexter? Good to see you, brother. Oh, I'm sifting on old Wes's 140 proof, and I trouble myself a minute over here and get me some. Old Wes's. Pretty good stuff. Almost good as mine. Good and sweet. Good stuff. Hello, Miss Lisa. How are you tonight? Fleischmann's bread yeast or Red Star bread yeast? Which one is better alternative than Daity? Yeah, as long as you stay under 10%, 10, 11, 12%, any of those bread yeasts is going to be fine. I did Fleischmann's for a long time because that's just all we had available. But I'd say both your bread yeasts are going to be pretty much similar. I'd say maybe Fleischmann's. That I say that because Fleischmann's kind of originally started out as a kind of a distilling yeast. And then it just became a catch-all. But it does produce a lot of CO2, which is great for bread making to create all those little air pockets in your bread and in your dough. But yeah, I used Fleischmann's for a long time. That was my go-to because it's pretty much all that was available at the grocery store. But I'm not a bread yeast snob, man. I like bread yeast, and it makes good liquor. But now that I've been introduced to other yeasts, I do prefer them. But if I had to go back to bread yeast and I didn't have anything else, I wouldn't hesitate to use it. Awesome. Good deal, brother. Yeah, if you got any questions, man, feel free to ask. That's what we're here for. What's going on, Kenneth? On what? When do you recommend doing a second distillation? My normal runs are through a 20-gallon all copper pot with a thumper. Well, I've found that running a second distillation, a lot of times I'll just do maybe stripping runs when you do stripping runs, just to strip off all the alcohol and then run it again to get it more attuned, I guess. Get better attenuation. Sometimes when you just run it once, you get muddied flavors, kind of not a lot of character, a lot of distinctive front end, back end. Sometimes it just tastes all the same. Whereas sometimes that second run cleans it up and you can get more, maybe better notes of flavor. But it definitely depends. There's nothing wrong with running it once, and one and done is perfectly fine. You make good cuts. It's perfectly fine way of doing it. Most people do. But I have found that I've run some things 3 times, and really got some. It definitely makes your cuts more defined, I could say, and it definitely sweetens it. It seems to get sweeter. But running, copper pot with a thumper, you're getting kind of a 1.5, almost a second distillation out of that thumper. So that's almost like running twice, right? But technically not like twice, but it's close. And that's the whole reason for the thumper is to increase production and to get the attenuation up. Used to back in the day when we were running like a lot of thin mash and stuff, and when people tried to do the conversion using malted corn, it was tough. So starting gravities were generally pretty low, and the first distillation wouldn't produce, a very high proof or a lot of it. And you'd run it from fours all the way to the end of the tails and then run it again to get to get better cuts and to get, and then we'd also include tails in the thumper, to increase the production. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with running it once, but sometimes I'll run it 2 or 3 times. Well, when you strip, sometimes I'll have more mash than my steel will hold, so I'll just strip it all down and get 2 or 3 runs in, and then combine that, proof it down to less than 80, and then run it all again and really focus on cuts. Then I'll still make the 4-shot cuts when I do it. I got that question asked yesterday. I still do that. You don't have to when you do the stripping run. You can just strip it all off, all the way down to the tails, all the way down deep into the tails. Is highly recommended, and then just run it all again, and then make your cuts then. But I'll always take that first initial 4-shot cut because I don't even want to fool with that again, And I'll make it on the second run too, because there's always going to be fours that carry over throughout the run, and when you run it a few times, it's easier to get more out. Awesome, awesome. Ain't nothing wrong with weed. Now it's legal, man. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you've got a big pot, I used to not have a big pot, and I would just, I would have to do little bits at a time and then dump it in the cooler, and then dump hot water, boiling water in it, to steep. Now I got a big 30-gallon pot where I can just, kind of keep it warm and steep it that way, and I still have a separate pot on the side, of boiling water to add to it. But either way works. But yeah, I got me a big Bayou Classic type, you know, heater with a, I don't know what you call it, the basket that fits inside of it as well. Yeah, it's good. At least you're catching something, huh? Yeah, cold coolers or cold fermentation vessels of any kind will definitely, it'll drop the temperature really quickly, and you got to keep eye on your temperatures. That's really, a lot of people focus on temperatures of, during distillation. They're all fixated on temperatures during distillation. That's really the least important time to really focus on temperatures, unless you're measuring the temperature of the liquor coming out. So if you want to measure the temperature of the drip, that's fine. That's a good thing to do. But really keep during conversion and making sure you start with, water that's got some acidity to it, not just neutral water. Start with, when you do the conversion, start with, I did not share the first link to this stream, man. I'm just realizing that. Wow, I'm blaming Clint. It's all his fault. Well, hold on a second. At least share these damn links. I can't believe I just did that. That's crazy. Definitely slacking. Definitely. My, I was worried about the storm, thinking about that storm. Jeez, I bet people are wondering. It's unbelievable. Oh, getting old and forgetful. But yeah, I was definitely worried about that big storm coming in and that big bow. I was afraid we was going to get some really bad winds. So let me share these links. I was just looking down. I was waiting for Steve. He ain't here, and tell me it's time to share them again. Wow. Give me a minute to share these out. Jeez, I can't believe I did that. Silly me. Oh well. Most of the people don't watch it live anyway. A lot of people just 90% of the people watch it during lunch hour on the way to work or whatever they're doing. But I look at the statistics. It gives us all the statistics. Doesn't tell me what time of day they're watching though, but it does tell me how many watched it live and then how many watched it later. And yeah, we get over 90% watch it later. So I guess they're out partying right now, so they're probably not even noticing my screw up, which is good. They won't notice a thing tomorrow when they watch it. But for those that were waiting for it to come to their group, I do apologize. Yeah. Not as sharp as it used to be. More ways than one. But that's part of getting old, I reckon. But we'll get them shared out. Saturday night, I'll bet a lot of people wondering what the hell. But a lot of people watch us on YouTube, so. But this is for all the Facebook groups, and I get quite a few people in the groups that enjoy it. Sometimes two or three from a group, sometimes a dozen or two. But when you do that over 20 groups, there's a couple hundred out of the 1,000 or so that watch it. Still, we got a pretty good coverage. Quite a few people watching it, but unfortunately, they don't watch it live. But I guess we answer a lot of the questions that they have, or they just enjoy listening to it, and maybe reinforcing what they've learned already, or get some questions answered that they may have had, which, a lot of times everybody pretty much has the same questions. So um, it's good that sometimes we get some repetitive questions, and I know sometimes it gets on people's nerve. Well, you just said that last week in the groups, they get pissed off. They're like, well, if you've been watching in the group, that somebody answered that a week ago. And there's nothing that burns me up more, man. It's like, yeah, they did, and we're going to answer it again. And you know what? Tomorrow, when somebody asks it, we're going to answer it even again. So, because the same people that are bitching about that, they had those same questions. They all had the same questions. We all do. We all have those same questions. Be nice if they just let me share them all since I'm doing it late. That ain't going to happen. Bear with me, though. Shouldn't be too much longer before they put the brakes on me. Probably now, since I'm going a little faster. They think it's a bot doing it when you do it real fast, so I try to do it a little more slowly so they realize it's the human doing it. And I'd say that was probably going to be the last one. Oh, I'm getting more than usual. That's awesome. Thank you, Facebook. Maybe get more people in the group is helping. We did get it last week. I did mention trying to get more people in and more involvement and more people in the podcast group, because that's what I cast from. And now all of a sudden I'm sharing more than usual. So I'm hoping that might be the case. It might not be, but nope, it stopped right there. So, oh well, almost got them all. Didn't get my buddies. Oh, two of my buddies, Brian and Marks, missed their page, so I need to move them up the list. Anyway, yeah, having something insulated, and I guess move my camera a little bit, and keeping things heated up. In the summertime, if you're doing it out in the sun, you can open that sucker up, man. It'll get pretty warm, but in the spring and fall, it can definitely get pretty cool. What's going on, Brian? Good to see you, brother. What's up, 12 pack? Yeah, that's what I was saying. If you add the water to the meal, it'll clump up and it's hard to get. Sometimes it'll form little dough pockets on the bottom of dry, and it's best to add it to the water if you can, for sure. While you have it being stirred is even better. So I think rigging something up to stir it like Wayne had, or like I've done, is definitely something that works real well. And or if you got somebody there to hold it and stir it while you add it, that really works well. Or you come straight out of the grain mill into the boiling pot, if you can get it set up. All right, brother. Take it easy, man. Be careful. We'll see you later. Yeah, you definitely want to activate your yeast. You know, that's definitely a good thing to do. Um, Activating your yeast, for those that don't know, getting some warm water, 90, 95 degrees, and adding your yeast to that with some sugar, maybe, depending on how much you're doing. But get you a quart jar about half full, put your yeast in there, put in some sugar, shake it up, dissolve the sugar, and take the lid back off. Don't leave that lid on, but set it inside a bowl, a large bowl, mixing bowl or something, and then put a little cover over it and keep it in a warm, dark place and let it work off. And that creates a starter. It does two things. It helps start your yeast multiplying, and it also lets you know that how viable your yeast still is. And some yeast has to be, activated that way. Anytime, brother. That's what we're here for. I don't even know what 12 pack's talking about. I don't think it has anything to do with what we're talking about. This is about distilling, man. This isn't about music or anything that you're saying, bro. What's going on, Matt? That's awesome, brother. That's good to hear. We love to hear that, man. Yeah, I like using oats. Oats give it a good, smooth, creamy flavor. That's, I mean, I almost don't even count oats in the grain bill. I say, yeah, I did 3 grain, little barley, a little wheat, and corn. And I'll throw a couple handfuls of oats in there every time, and it's I almost don't even count it. So it's technically 4, but yeah, I love using oats. Yeah, a lot of people like corn and oats and barley, cob, corn, oats, and barley is a really old, very popular recipe and a good combination too. Yeah, I love me some oats. Then wheat. Anytime, brother. Yeah, any questions you got, or if I didn't clarify anything or get them, don't be afraid to say, "Well, what did you say?" Or can you clarify that? Or you stopped mid answer and got off on a tangent and started sharing links or something, because I'm getting a little bit old and absent minded. Yeah, most of the people watch on tube. Yeah, marketplace or just touching base with friends. That's about all it's good for, really. But we enjoy. It's a good place to come ask your questions too in the groups if you don't want to tune in here, and it's a Thursday and it's going to be a couple few days before we're on Saturday, or so if you have questions, you can come to the DIY Shine and Steel Building page or the Moonshine Militia page and ask your questions there, and get help, from knowledgeable people. There's a lot of great groups out there, and I share to a lot of great groups. And I also see some of the information in some of the groups that I share to that's not so great. So there's some misinformation. I mean, I'm not going to be that know it all asshole that's going to chime in and say, that's totally wrong. This is the way it is. I'm not that guy. If I'm just not, I don't have time for it, and I don't want to come across that way. A lot of times things are opinions, but a lot of it's facts as well. And I see a lot of factual inaccuracies. All I can do, I don't want to be a group bully, but all I can do is tell people to check out and look at a lot of different sources, look for better sources. Don't get your information from Reddit. Don't come to Facebook for legal advice. And don't come to necessarily most of the Facebook groups looking for good sound distilling advice either, because most people that I've dealt with in the past, or many, you try to teach them and they learn a little bit, and then they make a mash and it comes out good. And they're like, I don't need to know anymore. I'm good. So I appreciate your help, but I'm a master distiller now. And they've got it all figured out, which is fine. And I appreciate that. But then I see them asking, questions, later. I got a stuck fermentation. What do I do? I keep adding yeast and nothing's happening, or something. So, but it's kind of funny. I've always been weary. I don't know exactly, like Kingsford and some of these other. I don't know what they put in these and the chemicals they use to give the flavor. I've always been weary. Um, so if it's just the wood, that's fine. But I always wonder if they soak them in something, thinking, this is something somebody's going to put on their charcoal in their grill to smoke meats with, and not something that they're going to ingest, directly, right? So I've always been very weary of using anything like that. And anytime I, do something, is I'm going to get the apple wood, and cut it up and dry it and use it, season it, or get it from a reliable source from a tree service or something that's, hey, I got you some good hickory, or I got you some white oak, or some apple wood. You're asking about apple wood, or some wild cherry or some cherry, So I've always been very skeptical about what maybe they put in those. I don't know, but ones like um, Jack Daniels smoking chips, I know those are just shredded up barrels, so that doesn't bother me as much. That's awesome, bro. So you can probably see these comments. Okay, so 12 pack just said his last. He's gone. Probably should have done that sooner, but I give everybody a chance. He just saying off the wall stupid shit, but yeah, it's a bit much. So fuck off. He can still see, but he can't post. So yeah, getting those barrel staves is great. My neighbor does a lot of furniture and a lot of interesting things with barrel staves, and he saves me small little cuttings off of them, that he can't use, and I take the MAP gas to him and torch the shit out of them, and put them in jars, and that works pretty well. It's not barrel aging, it's giving it a good smoky, tanniny, bitter, smoky flavor, but it's not the same. Phil Biddle last night was talking about some stuff that's out now. Can't remember what it was called. I guess if it's as good as it says it was, it's going to become a lot more popular. But you could just pour it straight into a white dog and it let it sit overnight. It made it taste like a bourbon. So I don't know. That's we'll have to see how that works out. But pretty interesting. I should have saved that, but I'll have to ask him what it is, or y'all can ask him. He may have posted about it on his YouTube. Anytime, Greg, brother. So next time you get ready to run, man, just touch bases. If you do join DIY Shine and Steel Building, I do have a kind of a little instruction guide, step by step on steeping, and it should help you. But yeah, keeping those temperatures right and adding that high temp alpha at 185 and maintaining that temperature for a while and letting it work. and then making sure um, exactly, what your label says for the glucose, and just follow the label. You should be fine. Yeah, there's a lot of people on YouTube that come from YouTube. Probably more than half. The people that follow the group and or follow the podcast are from YouTube. Definitely we get quite a few. Um, if you add it to the pot, not so much, but if you add it to an infuser, you can pull some flavor from it. Concentrate and of course like botanicals, spices and things of that nature. You definitely can. Certain things you can pull a lot more than you want, like cinnamon, clove, and things like that. So sometimes you got to be careful what you add and how much of it. But certain juices, that just don't come over a lot because a lot of them are watered down. So if you could put some concentrates in a infuser, that tends to work pretty well. And just got to experiment and try. But yeah, I would to do it all grain. Um, what I like to add to an all grain, try this inside of a not inside your pot now, but inside a thumper or an infuser. Add cream corn, but blend it, put it in a blender, make sure all your kernels get blended up so you don't puke those and get clogs or anything like that. But try some cream corn. Or if you want to add some more sweet corn to it, cream corn with extra fresh sweet corn or frozen sweet corn, blend it up real good and put that in your fuser, and you'll get a really good corn liquor flavor, and it's really good. That's what I highly recommend, more so than fruits. I mean, you can get kind of, sometimes the fruit and corn can pair well together, and sometimes they just like, what am I drinking? I'm peach and corn, or certain combinations may not work well for certain people, and it's all taste, so it's opinion. Um, but certain fruits might work well together, and certain fruits and corn or grain, barley and flavor might not work for certain people. But I tell you, adding that cream corn and some fresh, sweet corn to that thumper or infuser definitely helps the flavor of your corn liquor. Right, right. Yeah, I've just always been skeptical of them. I just don't know, what they're soaking them in and adding them. I'm not saying they're bad. I don't know. I just don't know. I'd have to go to the Kingsford plant and do a tour and to make myself feel good, because I just always worry they're soaking it in some kind of chemical that's giving it that cherry, flavor that comes off and smoky, which is great for the smoke, but might not be so great, for ingesting directly. But again, I'm not saying it does, but I would just be weary of it, right? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, I love using oats on just about everything. Yeah, on everything grain. I don't know if that was about some kind of music, KK music, or some shit that was some kind of music out there. Something. I'm kind of naive to some of the teenage stuff of the day. I usually give him enough rope to hang himself, and he certainly hung himself. But yeah, if you can get some, just apple wood or cherry wood that yeah, absolutely, it's great for smoking and for adding. But a lot of people use that to, smoke grains, and that works real well too. I know Wayne does that and a lot of people, smoke some grains and stuff. I've not done a lot of smoke. I have in the past, but I like getting it in the staves in it or putting it in a barrel. Now is my big objectives. Yeah, that works well. Yeah, yeah, it helps take particles, any floaties or anything out of it. Sure. especially if you use chips like that. You're definitely going to want to use something like that to get any small little pieces that you definitely don't want to be drinking sawdust, right? Is the finished flavor on a mash different on the grain ferment than off the grain? Yeah, yeah. On the grain ferment, you always want to ferment on the grain, unless you're making beer. Most beer makers won't. Once they get what they want out of the grain, they pull the grain and they go, with it without. But for distillers, absolutely, you're going to get more flavor, and you can distill on the grain as well if you have the right still. They're set up. Yeah, I have to check it out on the Kingsford site, see what they do. I'd like to just take a tour, and just see the whole process. Be pretty interesting. Yeah. Yeah, you can tell some little punk never had his mouth punched. You can tell. A lot of people like that these days. You can tell they never had their mouth punched before. Yeah, me either. Me either, JJ. That's cool. I bet you're chomping at the bit, man. That is awesome. Tell us how it comes out. Welcome to the crew, Days Hut. Daza, like y'all. Welcome to the crew. Do you distill? Are you thinking about getting into it, or just surfing YouTube and came across this wild man talking about making liquor? I don't know, but it's a great hobby. If you're not into it, it's sit around, listen, learn, and if you like to drink and got a lot of buddies that like to drink, it's definitely something you'll enjoy doing. I'm excited to get my my chair, man. This thing, I have 3 pillows stacked on it. It has no padding, and I've got pillows stacked up, and it's squeaky. I know it squeaks a lot every time I move, and I'm definitely anxious to get in that big new plush chair. Liquid smoke. I've not experimented with it. Again, with the chemicals and stuff, but I guess it is designed for ingestion because people put it in their sauces and stuff. So, um, I can't say it hadn't crossed my mind, but I've never done it. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that have, and I'm not sure. You can put it in one drop and maybe a double shot and just see what it tastes like. But in your thumper, yeah, that'd probably be a little bit better than in your shot glass. But it'd be interesting to put a little shot in the shot glass, see what it was like. Well, damn, that almost sounds too good to be true. Shit. Love the sweet corn in the thumper. Have done it multiple times, just trying to get more fruit flavor. Okay. Well, another way to pull some from florals and fruity notes, you don't even have to use fruit, is just try some different yeast. Different yeast will, like EC1118 is neutral. If that's what you're using, it's not going to give you a lot of floral notes and a lot of things, whereas like a D47 might. So experiment with different yeasts can give you some fruity floral notes without even having to add the fruit. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to get that mix. But yeah, just adding some concentrates works really well. Frozen concentrates work well. Yeah, it's tough to pull fruit. It is. It's the distillation process is the whole thing behind it is to eliminate impurities and make things pure. And when we try to get these flavors to go through, we're trying to defeat the distillation process. And and sometimes it wins out. It's pretty efficient in removing all impurities, good and bad. So sometimes we have to intentionally try to um, get it to add the impurities back, which is what infusion pretty much does. We add some flavor back. But I agree. I think so too, JJ. If instead of using liquid smoke, just as I was talking about earlier, put your grains in the smoker on some trays, and let them sit and smoke. In a certain percentage of them, and that'll give you some decent smoky. And I know cherry wood's real good for that. I always just been skeptical of if it's a pure cherry wood that somebody cut down and here I got a rick of cherry wood for you, that'd be awesome. Dry it, season it, and maybe in a year or two cut it up and char it and use it and smoke with it. um hey Marie, how are you? I didn't hear from you earlier. I was getting a little bit concerned. Hope you're feeling good, and a happy birthday. But yeah, it's just always been skeptical because I just don't know what they do in the process of making it good for you know smoking versus just adding it to it, adding it to something that you're going to consume. I'm glad you're feeling better, and I hope you're having a good birthday. Oh no, there's nothing wrong with asking crazy questions. There ain't no crazy questions, man. It's um But I mean, the thought has crossed my mind as well. I just never ever didn't end up doing it. But I've often thought, I wonder if that would work because I do like it. I've added it to some barbecue sauces and some marinades. So I mean, I'm not against using it, and it's safe to ingest. But I just never end up doing it. But yeah, it's give it a try and see how it works. Do it on a small batch though. See if it doesn't work out well, you don't mess up a big expensive one. Do it on some yellow corn and a cheap run and kind of experiment. Yeah, hickory's good. I'm glad you're feeling better, dear. Blasphemous. Well, I mean, if you're trying to substitute a barrel, but I mean, you never know. What are you talking about in your barbecue sauce too? Yeah, mesquite is another smoke that a lot of people enjoy. I like cherry though. Cherry's pretty good. And applewood good too. Apple's got a very light flavor. It's not as heavy as a cherry and an oak. So out of the ones you did you think the apple carried more flavor than the others? I've always felt apple was a little less dominant than cherry and hickory and oak and anything. You don't like liquid smoke, huh? That was funny. I turn this fan on, get a little warm after drinking the heat. My nose getting red. I hope y'all can't hear that fan. Can you hear that fan? Is it loud? East Coast. Yep. You can't hear it. Good deal. Yeah. I wonder if my mic, I added a little XLR voice modulator that's supposed to, the microphone's supposed to sound better through XLR than through USB. Does it sound any different? I guess you'd have to hear them both side by side to tell, but hopefully it sounds a little better now. Got a few more options now. Yeah, I think it's milder too. Think so. Yeah, I always thought it was a little milder flavored too. You barely hear it. Good deal. Pecan, interesting. Yeah, that'd be good too. I don't think I've done pecan. Done apple and cherry and hickory and mesquite and oak. I think it's trying to think if I've done anything else. I can't think of anything else. You can. Yeah, let me turn the. Did that help any when we turn this gain down a little bit? Yeah, I'm definitely coming to the Hillbilly Jam for sure. Yep, I will be at Maggie for sure. Yeah, buddy. I look forward to meeting you. But yeah, we're sponsoring it. The Moonshine Militia is sponsoring it this year, so yeah, it should be a good one. It does sound better than it did before. That's good. Did that? Did me turning down the gain make any difference for you, JJ? Can you hear it less now? What are people messaging me? All day, all night. Oh. Hey. Yeah, I don't think I've ever used pecan. I know it's pecan. I just like saying pecan. A lot of people call it pecan pie. Always stuck to a lot of hickory, like hickory, mesquite for meats. Yeah, I like mesquite too, Day. We eat a lot of fajitas and steaks, man. What we do here is I get these big, thick steaks, man. I don't like them thin because they overcook easily. I like a medium rare steak, and I get these big ribeyes and T-bones, inch and a half, inch and 3/4 thick, and but they're just so big I can hardly eat a whole one. Sometimes I will, most time not. And Ann, she's doing good eating a tenderloin off the porterhouse, much less the rest of it. So we'll save the rest of it and we'll have steak fajitas the next night. I tell you, I think I like the fajitas as well as I do just the straight steak, man. I love them. We had them night before last night. No, 2 nights ago. They good. Yep. Well, I turned the gain down a little bit, so maybe that'll help a little bit eliminate some of the background noise. But I do like this little. At first, I wasn't so sure about it because I can't hear what's on the other end, and I couldn't tell if it was doing any better than just USB. But it does have some pretty interesting options. voice changer. I don't know. Let's see. This is auto tune. Can you tell any difference when I just added the auto tune versus not? So this is auto tune, and this is back to the way it was. So here's the way it is now, and here's auto tune. Can you tell a difference in that? Medium rare is overcooked. Wow, you do you bother cooking it, man? Just eat it out of the package. Just thaw it and eat. Yeah, we I like medium rare. I like seared on the outside to hold in the juices. And I don't want it real red in the middle, but I don't want it pink either. It's got to be right in between. I'm pretty picky. So does that sound better with the auto tune or just different? It's pretty cool. Pretty cool little box. It's got a voice changer though. I can do all kinds of fun things with it. It's got voice changer. So let me see. This is fun. I can't even hardly read what it says. All right. This is supposed to be elder.
So this is supposed to sound like an old man. Is this what old men sound like? Let's see. What's this say? This old man needs a magnifying glass. All right. This is a monster. That's crazy. Robot. That's crazy.
Megaphone. That I wonder how that sounds. Megaphone. Does that sound crazy? And then
sounds like a baby. And it's supposed to sound like a woman.
And this is supposed to sound like a male.
And that's me. That's funny, isn't it? Man, the shit they come up with. But the baby one, that cracks me up. It sounds funny as shit. I had fun with it last night on Shit Show. It was funny. But yeah, so the auto tune sounds more electronic. You order them blue. So you just want them a little bit warmer body temperature, huh? Yeah, I think probably without sounds better. Old man sounded scary. The elder one, yeah, it did sound weird, didn't it? I don't think elders sound that way. But it's fun to tinker with. And it's got some pre-recorded ones that I haven't done yet. So I'm kind of looking into those and seeing. I guess I can do certain responses, probably more something I'll do if I game stream or something. But it's fun. And I like the 7.1. It's got an equalizer and a 7.1 surround, which enhances the hearing. It's got Windows Sonic, which allows me to hear more dimensionally in my gaming, which I really like. So so I can tell if the footsteps are coming from in front to my right instead of just to my right somewhere. So it's pretty cool. To catch a predator scary?
Was it that damn scary?
I don't know how that sounds like an old elder anyway. Popcorn Sutton voice. I don't know if they got old popcorn or not. He's got a different voice, doesn't he? 80s cargo bus down by the river.
Get in the car, JJ.
Yeah, probably do that. Puts the lotion on the skin. Yeah, it's fun. Mess with my friends. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I had fun with it last night. I was making fun of somebody I shouldn't, but it was too funny. Oh, West made some pretty good brandy there. Need to give him a call. I ain't talked to him in a while. He's been busy. Yeah, you want some candy. I'm the ice cream man. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the Darth Vader? You've come to the dark side, Luke. Come to the dark side, JJ.
I like the baby one.
It cracks me up, that little laugh of the fucking baby one. What's going on, Sean? You came in just in time to hear us acting a fool. How's it going, brother? What's going on, Scott? Yeah, y'all are late to the party. Saturday night, to be expected. You're home early. So what's everybody doing for Independence Day, man? I don't know. At 250th, I want to do something different. Usually I just spend it here, shoot a few stupid fireworks in the yard and dig them out of the utility bill. And I used to sell fireworks years ago, and I've got some ones out there. They're getting so damn old, though. I'm almost scared to shoot them. Yeah, helium voice. That is, yeah, it is about what it is. But 250th, man, I'd like to go somewhere. Maybe DC or Philadelphia or somewhere where they're having a big celebration. Just kind of a big thing. 250 years, man. Are they? That's awesome, man. Yeah, we're getting in the 90s. We've been rainy and overcast for like 3 weeks now. My tomatoes aren't doing shit. They're getting too much water and they're not growing much. Not getting a lot of sun. Getting waterlogged actually. Hadn't had the water, but yeah, it's not good. But this next week we're in the mid 90s real quick. So we're going from 70 to 90 real quickly. The dark side. What you got in them cookies, man? So the figs are kicking it, huh? That's awesome, man. So for those that don't know, anybody out there that's younger, if you got any property, any family property, any property been in the family for a long time or anything like that, I can't recommend enough. I have so many regrets not planting fruit trees just everywhere on the properties that my family own. Not necessarily if you live in the subdivision, it's kind of hard to do. But if you got any property out in the mountains, or if you just have a place you like to go out in the mountains, it's in the national forest, state forest, or something like that. Go plant some fruit trees out there, man, and it's a good place to hunt. It's a good place to go pick, and just make sure it's something that you're allowed to plant. But yeah, it's plant lots of fruits and berry bushes, fruit trees, peaches, plums, pears, apples, figs, plum trees, everything you can get in the ground, man. And a lot of it you can, you can clone. You can just cut a. I watched this video the other day. Is lady, she basically took these cuttings, and you want to cut at an angle like at a 45 to get more surface there, and she just laid them out on this roll and just rolled them up, right? And it was kind of almost like a muslin, but it was, a muslin cloth, kind of like a bandage type cloth. And she rolled them up and stuck them in a pot to propagate them, yeah, and cloned them, and grew lots and lots. So with one blackberry bush, you can take those cuttings, and you got to trim it back anyway. So take those cuttings and just rolled it up, put it in there, and use a little root hormone. And next thing you know, man, there's roots everywhere. She unrolled it, and they had good roots, pulling them apart, planting them, and got another berry bush. So propagate them like that, man, and you can get free plants. You don't have to go out and Stark Brothers and spend, $30 a plant. You can once you get one going good, propagate that thing, clone it. Yeah, it's a shame what they did to the reflecting pond out there too. Going in there and ripping it up and cutting it and tearing it up. That's just crazy, man. That sucks that people do stuff like that. But yeah, I'd like to go somewhere just to experience it. I doubt I'd get on that damn Ferris wheel anyway. I mean, I used to like roller coasters and all that. I'm not afraid or anything, but it just doesn't really do much for me anymore. I'm not into the rush. You start getting my age, you want to live longer. You start thinking about it. But yeah, I just like to experience something, a bucket list type thing, and have a good. It's going to be on a Saturday because I can tell you without a doubt, Saturday, July the 4th. Is that next Saturday? It is. Next Saturday, I ain't going to be here. So everybody go spend time with family, friends, shoot fireworks, cook some steaks, smoke some grain, do something, smoke something. But I won't be here next Saturday. I can tell you that now. I don't know where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing, but I don't know if I get home early enough. If I don't go out of town, I may jump on here and just to say hey or whatever at 10 or 11 or something, if I can. But at 8 o'clock, I will not be here next Saturday. So I'm going to be doing something. Hopefully, I'll be somewhere with making some memories. That's crazy, and people are just crazy. No, they actually caught people dumping chemicals in there and dumping algae and stuff in there. So I mean, I don't know about the curing process and all that. But it was reflecting already, Scott. I mean, I saw some pictures of it. I mean, it was doing well. It was looked a hell of a lot better than it did 8 years ago. Biden spent a bunch of money on it, or maybe it was Obama spent a ton of money, 34 million on it, and drew water right out of the river, and it was just an algae pool. They decreased the depth, and it was just shallow, and it was just smelly algae. So I think his heart was in the right place, but hopefully, I think it's insured and they can get it fixed and looking good again. But I did see before, had some good reflections. I think swimming pools are mostly blue because people like the blue water, and it just you can see the bottom is a little safer, and the water looks cleaner maybe. But yeah, it was doing the reflecting thing. I don't know if that's optimal, but I think at least he was trying to make things better. You look at some of the statues and stuff, some of the beautiful marble statues just had swastikas and graffiti and all kinds of shit on it. And, he's cleaning that up. And I like that. I don't like a bunch of graffiti and all that shit everywhere. It looks bad. There's no pride. So I like the fact that he was trying. You know, I think his heart's in the right place. Yeah, I think so too, Brian. Yeah, I don't know what kind of paint and what kind of sealant they were using on it, but it hadn't looked good in a long time, and they were trying to make it better. So I commend them for that. They made missteps and mistakes. That's fine. Yeah, they made it. Yeah, yeah. I don't know all the details, and I don't read a lot of news, and I know there's a lot of information and misinformation, more so myths than information these days. So I take everything I hear with a grain of salt, and I don't believe half of it from both sides. I think it's a lot of propaganda on both sides. I think there's a lot of division and hate being sown, and I don't like that. They got people to the point where they're doing opposite. I think all Americans should agree fraud and corruption is bad, and eliminating fraud should be something that everybody should agree on. But it's crazy that it doesn't. 15 million. Well, that's half of what Obama spent with the 34, and he made it worse than it ever was. So we all make mistakes. And I don't want to talk about politics, so I was just trying to talk about Washington and enjoying the festival. Now y'all trying to get into politics. We ain't going there because I don't want to get anybody mad. And that seems to be the case. A lot of times these days, you can't have a disagreement without people getting mad. So I try to stay away from religion and politics. I have some pretty strong opinions on it, but I keep those to myself. And I think people should, for the most part, go vote and get your voice heard at the polls. But a lot of times, I think people politicize everything. You can't talk about dairy cows without somebody talking about cow farts and air pollution and how it's killing people. It's just you can't even talk about anything anymore without it getting political. So I don't do it. Okay, that's it. How do I smooth out the bar after? Oh, now are you talking about? I know. Are you talking about how do I smooth out? Is it a char, or are we talking about maybe a scorched? Or are you talking about the burn from sugar? Be a little more specific. Mellowing it, there's several things to do to mellow it, though. It's even corn, even sugars. Um, Second distillation, um, but with corn liquor, I don't recommend it. But I mean, if it has a bite or something that you don't like, you can run it high proof, run a deflegmator and proof it up and get the higher proof to neutralize any kind of bad or any flavors, and then proof it down, and you'll get more of a neutral. And then you can infuse that or make a mixed drink with it, or something like that. But different corns are going to give you different flavors. And oats. We were talking about oats, how that smooths it out, gives it a smoother, softer feel. Wheat can give it a sweetness. So oats can definitely help soften it up for you, mellow it out a little bit. And also barrel aging and in barrel definitely helps mellow it out. And I definitely recommend, stave or barrel aging. It gives you about 65-75% of the flavor. Some say more, but 65 to 75% of the flavor that you taste from a whiskey or a good bourbon is coming from A, the barrel, and B, just the maturation process of esterification over time. So isopropyl. So it's just real astringent. I see what you're saying. One thing you can do is you can air it out. So airing it out will, leave like a coffee filter or a napkin and just, like on your jar top like this, just take the lid off and then put your napkin on there and just tighten it down and leave it that way for a couple of days. And your higher volatiles will kind of they'll go out. What you're talking about is called an astringent, and a lot of times wines will taste that way if you really get a real high proof wine. And after it ages, it'll lose that. So aging and maturation and esterification will help get rid of that isopropyl alcohol-y flavor. When you say it tastes alcohol-y and people are like, well, it's supposed to, it's alcohol. Well, they mean isopropyl and astringent, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So open it up, letting it air out, will get some of those higher volatiles out of there. Some of those higher volatiles actually contain isopropyl. That is a byproduct of distillation. You're going to get isopropyl. So allowing those to, air out will definitely help. And putting it in, aging, allowing it to esterify definitely takes some of that out as well. Even, a few months in a jar will help take it out. But even more so if you put it in a barrel. That's one of the things that kind of go into the wood a lot quicker because it's a lot thinner and more volatile. And Tammy's getting me drunk. And so it will, kind of become the angel share and evaporate out because it's more volatile and it goes deeper into the pores and it will pull some of the flavor out from the wood. But aging definitely will help that. Plus, adding oats and something will help mellow some of that out. I throw a lot of heads away. It's not necessarily making bad cuts or anything like that at all. I'm not saying you're making bad cuts. It's just that we found that during the whole distillation process, you're going to find heads and fours throughout the whole run. So we're not fractionally distilling on a pot still. They can in a very complex setup in a big, huge, you've seen these big, huge columns that go like 20, 30, 40 feet in the air with lots of outlets coming out the side. That's a fractional distilling column. And in one of those, they can pull about every different alcohol and volatile out all the way up the column. And they can separate it that way pretty efficiently. Whereas in a pot still, we're not able to do that. So in a pot still, you're going to get 4 shots and heads all the way through, but it diminishes, right? And then some say when it gets to the tails, it can increase, and in certain brandies, it can. But getting a second run can help eliminate that. But definitely airing it out, just letting it sit for a couple of days. I wouldn't allow it to just sit open. And people say, oh, you're letting good alcohol. Yes, you will lose some ethanol that way as well. But you do lose some of those volatiles, and putting it in a barrel or just jar aging. If it sits in a jar like this is Wes's. And when I first got it, it was very alcoholic tasting. Not like most, he does a great job, but as it sits in the jar, and even mine, as it sits in the jar, it esterifies and it gets smoother and it gets less alcohol-y, if that's a word. But yeah, my wines do that as well. Some of my high proof wines, like I do some really high end, not high end, but high proof wines, like my Sweet Heat. It's a white wine. It comes to about 12, 14% ABV, sometimes maybe a little higher. It's got some sugar in it. It it's pretty high octane wine, and it's still sweet and good. But when it first comes out, before I age it, it's very astringent. But after it goes through the esterification, it loses that astringency. Yeah, cheers, everybody. Yeah, I definitely want to do something for 4th of July. So I won't be here next Saturday. I'll be here Tuesday, but not next Saturday. But everybody get out and enjoy the 4th with your family and friends and do something memorable. It's the 250th, so celebrate. We live in the best country in the world, so celebrate that. It's all the viewers and listeners from other countries. I don't want to sound cocky when I say that. I'm glad I was born here. But there are other wonderful places that I've visited and would like to visit, and wonderful people. But I'm proud of my country and what we do and try to do for others. No problem, Harold. Thanks for tuning in and chiming in, brother. And anybody else, if you got any questions, definitely jump in there and ask them. You definitely want to ask them before I have too many more shots. I can't guarantee you I'll give the answer that you want me to. Well, I guess getting a little slow. 10:05. I guess let me share it to the last couple of groups. I want to get the share to Brian and Mark. I'm going to move them up the list. I need to. I might have already got. Let me check that. Make sure. I might have gotten it already to Brian. 1 minute, y'all. Yeah, we're going to try to wind it down here. We're getting. Unless anybody's got questions, now is the time. Jump in there and ask. It's definitely jump in and ask. That's our whole reason. Yeah, I did get it in there. Good. So I just got, I guess, Mark's is Shiner Family. Did I get Shiner Family? Let me make sure I got them. Yeah, I try to get all my friends groups and stuff, and there's some good small groups too out there that I like, as well as the new one. Okay, I didn't get Shiner Family. Okay, good. I'll send it to them now. Yeah, there's a lot of good groups out there. And Shiner Family's a good group. Oh, Dingus. Good people. So let me get those last two shared. There you go. Need to get some classes. My eye doctor's not been able to get me in soon. I need to get an appointment. I'll get new contacts, I should say. All right, good deal. I know, Tom. Yeah, I know. That was crazy, wasn't it? He's all right. I talked to him last night and today. But yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Okay, I have some heads and tails I want to rerun to hopefully salvage. Absolutely. They call it an all faints run. So, saving those is definitely a good thing. And some people have been quite surprised how good alcohol they can pull from just, heads and tails. Because most people feel like that's just the waste. A byproduct is the waste. It's not good. There's a lot of good ethanol, especially in those tails. Um, and there's a lot of good esters in those heads that give flavor as it ages in time. Might not taste so good now, but as time passes, some of those heads will combine with some of the acids, organic acids in there, and some of the oils, and estrify and create some very interesting flavors. But you have to give it time to do that. It's a chemical process that takes time. So you've got an ester and an acid, and it's two different compounds. And as they combine, they create a new compound. And it's a lot of polyphenols, phenols, flavonoids, and it's just flavors, right? And sometimes they can get floral and sweet and quite good. So definitely, you know, interesting what some people get out of the all faints run. They're very pleasantly surprised that, wow, I'm glad I saved this. This is some good shit. Might be even better than what they produce. So yeah, I always save a lot of tails too. I run it down. A lot of people stop at 80, 90. That's a high proof. You got a lot of ethanol in those tails that are easily removed. So back in the old days, we definitely always kept those. We ran it down as far as we could. We were using wood, so we didn't have to worry about gas, propane. Um, so it was, it wasn't like it was costing us $20 to run the tails out with propane. It's just another few more logs on the fire, right? But now, electric is a lot cheaper, so you can run it down, and there's a lot of good alcohol in those tails. So definitely run them out, save them, and it's great to load your thumper with them. It'll definitely increase your production, and it's not going to hurt their flavor at all. I don't know, man. So hell yeah, brother. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we're the soul of America, man. That's a fact. We're what makes us unique and and proud. Yep. Everybody have a great 4th of July. We'll see you Tuesday though. We'll be back Tuesday and we can talk about maybe if we make plans. I know Ann gets off. She's off Saturdays. She gets off at 3 Fridays, so we may just get a wild hair on Friday and drive somewhere and car camp and spend Independence Day somewhere unique, Philadelphia or somewhere. You never know what the hell we do. Just pull in a rest area, sleep, and then go have a celebration somewhere, man. But do get out and do something. Yeah. Anytime that you distill, you want it to be below 80 for sure. Absolutely. Yep. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah. So when you do your all faints run, definitely get your proofing hydrometer out and make sure that you're proofed down. Absolutely. I know it will, Matt. It will definitely make good liquor. Even just cheap old yellow dent corn. You can take yellow dent, $8 a 50-pound bag or $10, $12 wherever you get it, or even cheaper if you buy it from the farmer, which you should try to do. But yeah, grind that stuff up fresh. Don't get the cracks okay, but if you can get it fresh. But if you get the whole kernel and crack it and grind it fresh and just it's like coffee. Freshly ground coffee versus the shit that comes in the can that's been, oxidized, and it's just not the same. So corn liquor is the same. And adding that corn, that sweet corn and that cream corn to your thumper or to an infuser will help give you that good corn, flavor as well. But absolutely, the high temp amylase, if you get good quality amylase that's not old, or if you're not getting good conversions with it, then you definitely want to. You can test it with iodine too, by the way. After you get done, you can test for starches with iodine. So read up on that. You'll see the different colors, whether it's got starches in there or not. Easy way to see if you're getting good conversion from the amylase that you're using. If it's not efficient, then maybe use more. So, and then eventually you're not going to be able to use it all. So don't buy gallons of the shit, right? Unless you are a big distillery or you're running a lot of liquor, just get little pints, half pints of it, because it doesn't take much at all, very small amounts. So it goes a long way and it lasts a long time. So buy small bottles of it. You don't need the big, huge, and it doesn't pay, right? You think, oh, I'm saving money if I buy more. Well, you're not saving money if it's 2 or 3 years old and it just doesn't work anymore. You've lost money. So sometimes if you're not using much of it, but keep it in the fridge and you'll get a few years out of it. But just use more after a couple of years, double, and after it's 3 years, triple it, and then eventually it's just not going to work well at all. But it's good seeing everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you Tuesday. Until then, have a great weekend. Peace out. Shine on. Love y'all. And have a great rest of your weekend. See you Tuesday.